A ruthless mafia boss spent $1.8 million on doctors, but a $14 an hour maid cured his son in 30 seconds. 7 top medical specialists completely failed to make the 6-year-old boy speak after he watched his mother get brutally assassinated. But when a lowly hotel housekeeper simply folded a white towel into a rabbit, she unknowingly started the bloodiest mob war New York had ever seen. You won't believe the lengths this kingpin went to in order to protect her. Step into the quiet dark together. Picture Dominic Vasari. He is the most terrifying boss in the city. But right now, he is entirely broken down on his knees, across a Persian rug. He is desperate, pleading with his 6-year-old son, Leo, just to meet his eyes. But the boy is lost in sheer panic, hands clamped over his ears, screaming with no sound actually coming out. Outside, an ambulance wails into the night. It shows us that the heaviest battles we face always happen behind our own closed doors, no matter how tough we appear. Dominic spent nearly $2 million on 7 doctors over 2 years, and nothing worked. Even his hardened guards stand totally frozen by the door. They have destroyed rivals for far less, but tonight, nobody dares to move an inch. Right in the absolute center of this crushing meltdown, a housekeeper rolls her laundry cart past the open door. She does not ask questions or utter a single word. She simply grabs a soft white towel and folds it into a little rabbit with long floppy ears. Incredibly, Leo stops thrashing and goes completely still. It reminds us that the quietest, simplest gestures often carry far more healing power than throwing endless money at a broken heart. The maid gently sets the rabbit on the carpet a few feet away, sits back on her heels and just waits. Slowly Leo crawls forward. He reaches out his shaking hand, touches the soft ear and smiles. Dominic just lifts his head, absolutely terrified that breathing too heavily will shatter this miracle. Dominic is completely stunned. His voice is a hollow crack when he asks who she is. The maid stands up, smooths her wrinkled apron, and straightens her name tag. She looks at this terrifying boss, says she is nobody, apologizes, and vanishes down the hall. Her tag reads Savannah, a woman making $14.50 an hour. It reminds us that you never know who might walk in and completely change your fate. That quiet moment sparked the bloodiest turf war Dominic ever fought, and brought him the only love he ever trusted. Now he sits at his desk on the 47th floor. He ignores his whiskey, obsessively rewatching the security footage, the towel, the rabbit, his son smiling. The clip plays on a loop while 4 guards stand in heavy silence. The secretary slides a folder across the desk and slips out like a ghost. Let us unpack this heavy history. The Vasari family runs the Red Hook port, the casinos, and the rackets. His father moved illegal drugs, but when Dominic took the throne, he cut out the darkest parts of the business. It proves that we are never doomed to repeat the toxic mistakes of our parents. We always have the power to carve a better path, but choosing the right thing was not enough to keep his wife safe. 2 years ago, a stray bullet meant for Dominic ripped through their car. It struck Alina while she was desperately shielding their child. Little Leo watched his mother slip away, right there in his arms. That agonizing trauma is the reason the boy has not spoken a single word since that horrible night. Duca, the loyal right-hand man for 22 years, steps into the room. He ran a background check on the maid and swears she is clean. Dominic is suspicious. 7 elite doctors could not do what this girl managed in 30 seconds. Frankie reads the file. Savannah Reeves, 27, from Akron, no record. Her younger brother drowned in 2014, and her grandmother passed away last year. Dominic instantly clocks the connection, asking if the brother was autistic. The files are sealed, but Frankie found proof confirming it. Dominic walks over to his massive window, staring out over the cold lights of Manhattan. It is a harsh reminder that you can hold all the wealth and power in the world, but it absolutely cannot buy the true peace and healing your soul needs. Dominic orders Frankie to bring her to the penthouse tomorrow, warning him not to reveal who is asking, or she will run. Frankie asks what he should tell her. Dominic coldly replies to ask if she wants to keep her job. It is savage. To understand how a maid reached a traumatized kid when experts failed, we have to jump back 19 years to Ohio. Savannah was just 8. Her mother walked out, and her father only showed up to steal cash. All that remained was a tiny house, Grandma June, and her 6-year-old brother Thomas, who never spoke. Life deals some of us a brutal hand from the beginning, but those exact painful struggles build the deep empathy we need later on. Savannah was forced to grow up way too fast, just to keep her family from falling apart. Little Thomas was incredibly sensitive. He hated the heavy hum of fluorescent lights, would only eat white foods, and despised clothing tags against his skin. The doctors slapped the word autism on his chart, like a boring weather report. But Grandma June was an unstoppable force. She taught special education for 31 years and never flinched. She told young Savannah to always watch his hands instead of his eyes, because hands never lie. That is a massive lesson we all need. Sometimes to truly understand someone, you have to stop listening to words and just watch their quiet actions. Savannah completely adapted. She learned to fold a washcloth into a little rabbit because Thomas refused to sleep without one. She learned to softly hum instead of sing, creating a safe, quiet space for him. Picture this heartbreak. Savannah takes little Thomas to the pool. She watches him for an hour, but steps away for 4 minutes to grab a popsicle. 4 minutes, and the worst happens, he drowns. She goes mute from the shock, drops out, and slings plates at a diner. Grandma June dies when Savannah is 24, leaving one final rule: do not let his death make you terrified of other kids. Savannah packs her broken life and moves to New York. She wears a bracelet of the mass hair and avoids alcohol to numb the pain. Cut back to her at the hotel, sliding down the wall in the linen room, completely breaking down. Here is a vital life lesson. The heaviest guilt always stems from the smallest choices, but you simply cannot let the past anchor you in the dark forever. Shaking because she recognized the terrified look on that boy's face. It has haunted her nightmares for 11 years. She whispers to herself, apologizing to Tommy, swearing. She is not walking away this time. Her coworker Maggie bursts in, demanding to know what she did to that man's son. Savannah panics, offering to quit, but Maggie drops a terrifying truth. Resign, sweetheart. The Don just asked for your name. Absolute chills. By 9 the next morning, an enforcer marches her through metal detectors into a shadowy office. Dominic is by the window. Savannah instantly checks his hands. Clean nails and a wedding ring he should have taken off years ago. Remember this lesson: sometimes stepping directly into the fire is the only way to finally stop running from your past. Into this tension, Dominic has calluses on his knuckles, the kind a man gets from destroying a heavy bag at 3 a.m, when demons will not let him sleep. He states she did something a team of doctors could not do, demanding to know how. Savannah plays it cool, saying she just folded a towel. The Don does not play games. He asks for her dead brother's name. Savannah freezes. She asks if he looked into her past. Dominic admits he investigates everyone. He says Tomas' name. Noting he died in 2014, he sits down at her eye level and drops a huge offer, $2,000 a week, to be his son's companion. Savannah tries to back out, claiming she lacks a degree. The lesson here? True value is never about pieces of paper. It is about the raw empathy you carry. Dominic shuts her excuse down. He hired 7 experts, but his kid refuses to look at them. Savannah takes a breath and drops a bombshell. She refuses to take money if she cannot deliver, and she knows what his family does. It is a hard pass. The enforcer Frankie stops breathing. Nobody has told the Don no to his face in 9 years. Dominic leans in, asking if she is afraid of him. Her response is ice cold. She states she is only afraid of what she does not know, and she does not know him. He respects her nerve and gives her 48 hours to decide. She walks out without a glance back. For the first time in 2 years, the boss feels curiosity instead of crushing grief. The lesson? Standing your ground commands far more respect than bending the knee to sheer power. Inside her tiny apartment, the room shakes every time a train rips by, but you and I know a person gets used to any noise. Eventually, she sits on her bed and pulls out a heartbreaking old tin box. Inside is a faded photo of Thomas at the pool. His raggedy stuffed rabbit and a hospital bracelet. It is heavy, raw grief. She closes her eyes, flashing back to the last night her brother was alive. They were on the porch, and he gently traced a shape into her palm with his tiny finger. 2 long ears and a round body. He never made eye contact, but that was his beautiful, quiet way of saying he loved her. Here is a profound life lesson to carry with you tonight. Love doesn't always need loud words. Sometimes the quietest gestures carry the most massive emotional weight in our lives. The first time in 6 agonizing months, the dam breaks. Savannah collapses, letting the bitter tears fall suddenly. Her phone vibrates in the dark. It is Miss Maggie, demanding the truth. Savannah pours out the whole terrifying story about the mafia boss and his impossible offer. The silence on the line is heavy enough to crush bone. When Maggie finally speaks, her wisdom cuts deep. Dominic is a dangerous man, she warns. But that little boy is completely innocent. Savannah gasps for air. Then Maggie asks the question that changes everything. If Thomas had lived and a stranger was his only hope, would you not pray they said yes? She tells Savannah to set ironclad rules. No dirty cash, no mob favors. Life is like that. Sometimes you cannot punish a child for the sins of their father. True kindness means stepping into the dark when someone is truly helpless. Maggie lays down one final rule. If you ever feel unsafe, you call me, even at 3 a.m. At 7:15 sharp, Savannah calls Frankie the enforcer she is in, but on 3 absolute conditions. First, she keeps her hotel gig to stay grounded. Second, she demands exactly $600 a week, reported legally on a W-9 form. Frankie stammers in stunned disbelief. Her third condition is the heaviest. If little Leo shows a single ounce of fear toward her, she walks away forever. Frankie goes dead silent. Struck by a deep respect, she is the first soul in history to negotiate a mob salary downward. It is a quiet, powerful truth we often forget. Your integrity is the strongest armor you will ever wear. When you refuse to be bought, no one can ever truly control you. Step into the shadows with me. Frankie actually watches his ruthless boss crack a faint smile. Dominic has not smiled in 2 agonizing years. He hangs up, locking Savannah in for Monday, but the peace shatters instantly. The door swings open without a knock. In walks Camila, an ex-model clinging to the dawn for 8 desperate months. She floats in wearing a Valentino dress, flashing a brilliant smile, bringing macarons for the traumatized boy. On paper, she is the perfect trophy wife. But we know better than to trust a beautiful mask. People can dress their demons in silk, but a rotten heart always reveals itself. The simple truth is, real beauty is found in how you gently hold the broken, not in the expensive things you buy. Notice how Camila ignores the ghost haunting the room. She never asks about Alina, the wife Dominic buried. She just kisses his jaw, asking if his shattered son will eat her macarons. Dominic is miles away. His mind is anchored to a memory of a mysterious woman quietly folding a towel. 20 minutes later, the illusion shatters. Out on 5th Avenue, Camila drops the sweet act. She pulls out a burner phone. Texting an unknown number to complain the boss still refuses to touch her. The reply is chillingly brief. Patience. Meanwhile, across the river, Savannah sits alone, tracing the edges of a faded photograph. It is a quiet reminder for all of us. Sometimes, real love means carrying the heaviest burdens, doing the painful things to honor the ones we have lost. Savannah has no idea that just 2 floors down, the fake girlfriend in the Valentino dress is frantically deleting dark text messages. When Monday morning arrives, Savannah steps out of the elevator. She brings no designer luggage. She carries a cheap canvas tote bag, packed with plain washcloths, origami paper, and homemade slime she cooked on her stove. No flashy screens, just pure patience. Frankie guides her to a massive white door. He warns her the boy has been awake since 6, refusing food, and that the dawn is nearby if things go wrong. Savannah gives a calm, steady nod. She is not running from this fight. It proves a beautiful point about life. True power does not require wealth. The greatest weapon you can bring to heal a broken soul is a genuinely kind heart. Frankie pushes the door open, revealing a nightmare of sterile grief. There is no warmth, just clinical white. White walls, white rug, and cold hospital sheets. The bookshelf holds dense textbooks no child would read. There are no toys, messy drawings, no life. This room was built by a man terrified of feeling any real emotion. In the corner, tiny Leo sits on a cushion, obsessively folding a scrap of paper into nothing it shatters the heart to witness. Hovering right above him is Camila, draped in cashmere and pearls. She drips with a sickening fake sweetness, completely suffocating his tiny personal space. We often forget this quiet truth in life. True emotional safety can never be manufactured with soft words and expensive things. It requires a gentle, genuine presence. Camila pitches her voice way too high, screeching at the boy to say hello. It hits the room like a blaring alarm. Leo violently flinches, shrinking deeper into the corner. This is where Savannah proves her deep understanding of the human heart. She takes a slow breath, scanning the room. Camila is a walking disaster. Her voice is sharp, her movements erratic, and she is choking the air with heavy perfume. Instead of forcing contact, Savannah executes a beautiful move. She completely ignores the terrified child. She simply sits cross-legged on the rug 3 meters away, pulls out pale blue origami paper, and calmly begins to fold in life. Sometimes the most profound and loving thing you can do for a panicked soul is simply to sit in silence and give them the space to breathe. Camila turns towards Savannah, pasting on a plastic smile. She tries to flex a shallow psychology fact she definitely skimmed off the internet. Savannah is not having it. Without lifting her eyes from the paper in her hands, she cuts the woman off. Her tone is gentle, but wrapped in steel. She calmly tells Camila to leave the room for 30 minutes so the exhausted child can have peace. The fake smile instantly cracks on Camila's face. She sputters a weak excuse, but her cruel eyes drop to Savannah's cheap uniform, flat shoes, and scuffed watch. You can feel the venom dripping from her stare before she storms out, shutting the heavy door. It is a vital reminder for all of us. True class and inner grace have absolutely nothing to do with the price tag on your clothes. The tragic irony is heavy. Savannah has no idea this woman only visits the boy when the boss is home to witness the act, but here is the most agonizing detail. Camila's heavy perfume is the exact same scent the treacherous night nurse wore 2 years ago. The night little Leo was covered in blood and stopped speaking forever. His small body remembers the terror. Savannah is completely blind to this bloody history, but her instincts are flawless. She turns off the harsh fluorescent lights and pulls back those suffocating heavy drapes. She lets the warm, natural golden sunlight slowly wash over the entire room, chasing away the shadows. It is a gentle reminder for us all. Sometimes, simply opening the blinds and letting the light in is the very first step toward healing a truly shattered soul. Anna settles back onto the rug and gets to work. She folds a tiny paper rabbit, a swan, a dog, and a frog, letting 30 minutes pass in silence. Then she hears it, the faintest scrape of a cushion. She plays it cool, keeping her eyes down. Leo is actually crawling across the floor. He stops a meter away, mesmerized by her moving hands. Gently, Savannah slides the smallest rabbit across the rug. He does not grab it, but he does not flinch away either. Slowly, she begins to hum a deep, rhythmic tune she learned from her grandmother. It is a low, vibrating melody, the kind of pure, maternal sound that wraps around you and makes you feel safe in a terrifying world. True connection is rarely loud. It is built in the quietest, most patient moments of our lives. Stay with me here because the payoff is miraculous. Leo actually tilts his head, letting that soothing hum wash over his shattered nerves. An hour drifts by until Frankie taps on the door. Right then, the breakthrough happens. With one trembling hand, Leo reaches out across the rug. He snags the paper rabbit and tucks it into his pajama pocket. Savannah does not make a spectacle of it. She simply offers a warm thank you and promises to return tomorrow. Leo stays silent, but as she leaves, his haunted eyes follow her every step. It is a beautiful lesson for us all. Trust is built in quiet inches, never in loud miles. Meanwhile, 2 floors down, poison is brewing. Camila has transformed a luxury suite into a paranoid lair, glaring like a hawk at a hidden security monitor. Camila watches the paper rabbit slide into the boy's pocket. Through the grainy feed, panic sets in. She grabs her burner phone, texting her contact that they have a new problem and must speed up their dark conspiracy. Fast forward 2 weeks. Savannah is relentlessly showing up 4 mornings a week. She rides the subway, walks midtown, and heads up to the penthouse, always wearing her humble uniform and carrying that battered tote bag. The progress is slow, but undeniably real. During their 3rd session, while quietly folding a blue swan, Leo reaches out and rests his tiny hand against hers for 3 whole seconds. Savannah keeps folding, totally unfazed, letting the boy guide the quiet moment. It proves a profound point. True devotion is simply about showing up day after day until the ice finally melts. Anna does not say a single word, but beneath her calm surface, her heart is hammering a frantic rhythm. By their 5th session, the boy shifts the entire dynamic. Without warning, little Leo marches to that dull bookshelf and pulls down a worn picture book about the ocean. It looks perfectly ordinary, except for one faint, faded fingerprint on the bottom edge, the lingering touch of his late mother, Elena. Savannah feels the chill settle into her bones. Leo drops the book right into her lap. She does not push him to read. Instead, she rides the wave. She turns the pages slowly, ignoring the letters, just naming the colors, the deep, heavy blue of the water, the bright foam, the gray fish. She keeps the room anchored in total peace. This fragile little boy rests his weight against her knee for 40 minutes straight. He barely breathes. By session 7, Savannah introduces the kinetic sand. Leo buries his small hands in it, utterly mesmerized. Slowly, he shapes one large circle, and then a tiny one right beside it. Savannah reads the agonizing truth instantly. The large circle is the mother he lost, and the small one is him. She does not intrude. She does not make a scene. Instead, she quietly shapes a 3rd circle and places it at a safe distance. She is telling him, "I am here in the dark with you, but I will never force the door open. You know, simply respecting a broken heart's boundaries can change a life." He just stares at her circle. He does not pull it closer, but he does not crush it. Out in the shadowy hallway, the feared mafia boss Dominic stands perfectly still. Frankie steps up behind him, whispering that the dawn has been frozen there for an hour. Dominic does not blink. His eyes stay locked on that door as he confesses something heartbreaking. He has not been able to stand near his own flesh and blood for that long without the boy spiraling into terror. 2 long years of pure agony. By session 10, Savannah is humming a soft, mournful tune. Halfway through the hour, a tiny, fragile sound rises from the floor to meet hers. Leo is humming back, matching her pitch perfectly. Savannah keeps her hand steady, pretending the world has not just shifted on its axis. The instant that door clicks shut, Savannah collapses against the cold hallway wall. She buries her face in her hands and weeps, completely silent, terrified the boy might hear her breaking apart. That melody was the exact tune her late brother used to sing before everything went dark. I think we both know that the people who carry the deepest scars are usually the ones holding the bandages for everyone else. She dries her eyes, forces a warm smile, and walks back into the fire. By session 12, the wall finally cracks. Leo stands up, crosses the room, and takes her hand. He physically pulls her to the glass to look at a pigeon resting on the sill. Savannah whispers the word. Slowly, the boy's lips part. No sound comes, but he mouths the word perfectly back to her. This is exactly why you have to watch your back when a jealous soul smiles and hands you a drink. Savannah is practically vibrating with hope. The boy finally formed a word, but she masks her joy, nodding gently as she waits for the elevator. Suddenly, the heavy sweet door swings wide. Camila, the Don's bitter girlfriend, steps out with a perfectly crafted smile and a tray of fresh juice. She practically forces the cold glass into Savannah's hand. Luckily, Maggie, the sharp-eyed veteran maid, marches down the hall just in time. She boldly announces that Savannah has an urgent call at the front desk. Savannah leaves the untouched drink and escapes. Let me tell you, always respect the quiet workers who have been around for years. They see every single shadow in the building. As the elevator doors close, Maggie stares straight ahead and drops a terrifying truth. She whispers that Camila had been lurking outside the boys' room for 20 minutes like a ghost. Savannah feels her blood run cold, but Maggie urges her to stay alert. Upstairs, the mask slips from Camila's face. Boiling with rage, she storms over and pours the tainted juice into a potted white orchid. She had laced that drink with enough heavy sedatives to trap Savannah in bed for days. Her cruel logic was simple. Break the routine. Keep the teacher away and let the boy forget her. You and I see this all the time. Bitter jealousy twists people into doing horrible things. But targeting an innocent worker is just a symptom of a deeply hollow heart. Camila crushes the empty glass against the counter, pulls out a burner phone, and decides it is time to get ruthless. Her subtle poison trick failed entirely because of one observant maid. So, Savannah just keeps returning to the penthouse every single day, completely unbothered, giving the boy everything she has. Then Wednesday arrives. Dominic, the untouchable Don of the city, pulls up to his building hours ahead of schedule. This is a man who had a sit-down with powerful bosses in Tribeca and millions on the line at the port. He scraps all of it. He leaves his heavy hitters standing in the dust without a word. Sometimes, no matter how much money is on the table, life demands that you drop absolutely everything to save the people you love. The Mafia kingpin rides the private elevator in total isolation. He steps into the vast, silent penthouse and stops dead at the living room archway, stripped of his power by the scene on the floor. Savannah is sitting barefoot on the expensive rug, shaping kinetic sand, and right there, pressing his small shoulder against hers, is Leo, not hiding in a closet, not trembling, just rolling out a long ribbon of sand. Then it happens, a tiny, fragile curve pulls at the corner of the boy's mouth. A real smile. It is an absolute miracle. The hardened criminal stands frozen, terrified that breathing too loud will shatter the illusion. Savannah slowly lifts her head, her eyes locking onto his shadowed figure. Dominic gives her the slightest shake of his head. He is silently pleading with her, desperate not to break the spell. The massive boss sinks into a leather chair across the room, sitting perfectly still for 20 minutes. He watches his broken boy, and he studies the quiet woman who brought him back to life. When the child finally drifts to sleep, and Savannah carefully tucks a blanket over him, Dominic steps from the shadows. He asks for a moment of her time. He guides her out onto the freezing high-rise balcony, the city lights bleeding into the night sky. Frankie stays inside behind the glass then. The most feared man in the city picks up a pot and pours her coffee himself. You see, true power is never about force. True power is having the humility to serve someone else. She takes the coffee completely black, bitter and sharp, and Dominic silently respects the choice. He leans against the railing and confesses that a stranger accomplished what he, the boy's own father, failed to do. But Savannah refuses to let him drown in self-pity. She tells him the boy tracks his every footstep through the halls. She explains that children like Leo do not lack emotion. They simply speak a language the world refuses to learn. When he asks how she knows, she tells him about her little brother, dead at 10, and the guilt that eats her alive. Dominic does not offer cheap sympathy. He simply admits his wife was taken from him 2 years ago. We both know how it goes. Deep, unspoken pain always recognizes its own reflection. The city wind bites at them as Dominic stares into the dark. He admits he was not watching his wife closely enough either. Just 2 haunted people sharing the heavy burden of survival. Then he unearths the nightmare. 2 summers ago. A rival crew lit up their car on the highway. Alina shoved their 6-year-old son to the floorboards and took the bullet meant for the front seat. The boy was trapped under her when she stopped breathing. Savannah places her cup on the table. The tragic puzzle finally locks into place. She looks this dangerous man in the eye and tells him his son is not broken. He chose silence the last time the boy raised his voice. His mother bled out. Trauma is a brutal architect. It forces the human mind to build desperate walls just to survive the horror. Her voice trembles as she paints the terrible picture. Little Leo likely screamed for his mother right as the glass rained down. In his devastated mind, making a sound became the trigger that killed the woman he loved. Dominic freezes completely. His heavy palm hits the metal table, his eyes turning viciously red with a father's pure agony. He dragged his bleeding son to 7 elite doctors, and every single one of them missed the truth. Savannah tries to soften the blow, whispering that she is no professional, but the Don feels the absolute truth of her words. In his very marrow, they stay out on that freezing balcony for hours, letting their coffee turn to ice. Sometimes it takes the fresh eyes of a stranger to finally uncover the answers we cannot bear to see ourselves. When Savannah finally leaves, the Don actually walks her to the elevator, his manners perfectly intact. He steps back onto the balcony, staring down at the glittering neon of a city that has taken absolutely everything from him. His right-hand man, Frankie, approaches slowly, asking if he is all right. Dominic does not even turn his head. He just stares into the dark and asks if a truly good person can survive in their twisted world. Frankie is stunned into total silence. He has served 3 generations of this bloodline, and no boss has ever asked a question that heavy. In the shadows, Camila is watching. She feels the cold shift in his demeanor. It is a harsh truth of life. A guilty conscience will always leave a trail, no matter how hard you try to hide it. With me here, because the tension is about to break them. Over the next 10 days, the boss completely shatters his routine. Instead of staying out late, he walks through the door at 5. He skips a massive gala. He even takes his private calls in the kitchen, just to keep his eyes glued to the hallway. Camila slinks downstairs in a stunning backless dress, holding 2 glasses of expensive wine. He barely glances in her direction. 8 months together, and she has never felt a freeze like this. Panic sets in. She snaps into pure survival mode, orchestrating a fake Sunday dinner, and claiming she cooked everything from scratch. She corners Savannah, demanding she stay. Listen to me carefully. When someone who hates you suddenly acts like your best friend, you run the other way. Camila cranks up the fake sweetness, begging Savannah to stay for dinner. But Savannah has sharp instincts. She drops a polite but freezing cold rejection, telling the boss girlfriend she has a shift downstairs at 6. The doors slide shut right in Camila's furious face. 2 days later, a fancy gift bag appears in the staff room. Inside is a gorgeous camel coat from an upscale boutique, with a sticky note claiming it did not fit Camila anymore. Maggie takes one look and warns Savannah the jacket costs over $1,000. Savannah instantly feels the danger. She writes a polite note and shoves that coat deep into her locker. Let that be a lesson for us all: never accept expensive gifts when the strings attached are meant to choke you. That expensive coat was hiding a listening device, stitched right into the lining. Because Savannah locked it away, the bug just recorded the hollow darkness of a metal locker for 9 days. Camila is furious, pivoting to outright crime. She tracks down a hotel tech drowning in gambling debt and slides him $4,000 in cash. His job? Change Savannah's schedule so she gets sent down to the windowless basement storage on sub-level 2. No cameras, no witnesses. Savannah heads down there at 3 following orders. She is unlocking the door when heavy footsteps stop behind her. A massive guy in a gray jacket blocks her exit, flashing a sick smirk. It is a terrifying reality. Money can buy a lot of awful things in this world, but it will never buy you a clean conscience. Savannah tries to play it cool, saying she needs to get back to the lobby. But the huge guy takes a heavy step forward, forcing her backward into the suffocating dark of the storage room. He steps inside and she hears that terrifying metallic click of the door, locking shut up in the security room. Frankie is doing his digital sweep. He spots Savannah's card swiping into the basement at 3 in the afternoon. And alarm bells ring. He instantly calls the Dawn. Dominic is inside that elevator in under 40 seconds. He does not grab his men. He does not even grab a weapon. He stalks down that basement hall like a ghost, closing the final 10 feet so silently, the attacker does not even sense him. My friends, true loyalty is not just a promise you make. Loyalty is a pure action. The boss hits the guy a single time. When Dominic swings with that kind of quiet fury, one punch is all it takes. The attacker folds like cheap cardboard, crashing into soap buckets, completely out cold. Savannah is terrified. Pinned against the metal shelves, gasping for air, Dominic ignores the trash on the floor. He locks his dark eyes with hers and gently asks if she is hurt. She shakes her head, and he tells her to walk with him. He sneaks her out a hidden door into an armored truck and speeds onto Lexington Avenue. Savannah is shaking, panicking that she needs to quit because someone is actively hunting her. Dominic stares at the dark road ahead, his voice dead calm as he agrees. Someone really wants her gone. Sometimes the safest place is the last place you ever expected. Let's look at this together. The Dawn is finally putting the pieces into place. He tells Savannah the threat is an inside job. He trusts her because on day 1, she was the only one who did not stare at the hidden weapon under his desk. She did not even know he had one. That pure innocence makes her different. The boss personally drives her back to Queens. He takes in her harsh reality, the beat-up mailboxes, the sketchy street, the heavy deadbolts she relies on every night. He does not say a word. He just parks and waits in the dark until her apartment light finally flicks on. Here is a simple life lesson for you, Fu. Sometimes the loudest way to show you care is making sure someone gets home safely. As soon as that warm light hits the glass, he picks up his phone. He calls his enforcer Frankie, ordering him to double the security on Savannah, completely under the radar. Here is the massive twist. He orders an investigation into his own inner circle. He tells Frankie to look at everyone, especially his girlfriend Camila. Frankie is shocked, but Dominic knows toxic jealousy when he sees it. Meanwhile, up in the penthouse, Camila is losing her mind. She has waited 2 agonizing hours, but for the first time, the boss completely ghosts her. She does not just cry. She chucks a full glass of red wine straight into the roaring fireplace. It is a harsh life lesson. You can never force someone to value you, no matter how much you dress it up. Her eyes go cold as she grabs her secret burner phone, ready to unleash absolute chaos. This morning, Dominic is in the break room before 7, holding a folded note. He offers Savannah a free luxury apartment in Brooklyn Heights with around-the-clock security. But Savannah is not having it. She slides that paper right back across the table and flat-out rejects the boss. She tells him that if she takes his apartment, she crosses a permanent line. She refuses to be a kept woman. Dominic does not argue. He expected this fierce self-respect from her. He just nods slowly and tells her to accept the invisible protection instead. His best men will watch her block every night. Let this be a life lesson for everyone listening. Never compromise your true independence for convenience. Keep your boundaries firm, even when a powerful man offers you the world. Remembering her sketchy neighborhood, she agrees to the hidden bodyguards, provided they stay invisible. Fast forward to week 4, and little Leo is making beautiful progress. He grabs a notepad, while Savannah hands him a box of crayons. He immediately goes for the blue one he swiped from her bag weeks ago. With careful hands, he draws his family a tall man, a blonde woman, and a little boy holding her hand. That is his late mother and his dad. But then there is this heavy, emotional pause. In the blank space right next to his own character, the kid starts drawing a 4th person. The air in the room just stops. The life lesson here is simple. True family is not just about who shares your blood. It is about who actually puts in the time to stand by you when you need them the most. The 4th figure on the paper is a woman with brown hair. She is not drawn next to the dad. She is standing right next to Leo. Savannah stares at the drawing, fighting back waterfalls of tears. He did not replace his dead mother with her. He made her his own best friend. That is a beautiful life lesson, right there. You never have to erase someone's painful past to become a meaningful part of their future. Savannah gently kisses his crayon and hands it back. By Thursday, the emotional weight gets even heavier. She brings out a tiny clay flute she has not touched in 11 years. It is a personal family heirloom, carrying its own ghosts. She sits on the rug and plays 3 simple, calming notes. The kid completely freezes up. The suspense in that quiet room is unreal. Then slowly he moves toward her. Leo walks across the rug, sits against her side, and reaches up. He does not snatch the flute. He presses his palm against the clay to feel the music's vibrations. Then, the craziest thing happens. The quiet kid opens his mouth and lets out a steady hum that matches her note. This is a massive breakthrough. Down the hallway, Dominic hears this impossible sound. He sprints around the corner but slams on the brakes at the doorway, completely stunned. He looks like a dangerous man terrified of cracking thin ice. Leo looks right at Savannah and hums the note again. The ruthless mafia boss has to grip the doorframe just to keep his legs from collapsing. Here is the life lesson: genuine patience and kindness will always break down the walls that money, fear, and power could never touch. It is long past midnight, and the penthouse feels heavier than the dark city below. Savannah is quietly washing glasses. When Dominic appears, the man looks like a ghost carrying the weight of the world, pouring a glass of water. Out of nowhere, his voice shatters the quiet. Today would have been his late wife's 13th birthday. He does not stop there. He confesses the brutal mafia vengeance he carved out after she died, expecting Savannah to run, but she just respectfully dries her hands. She tells him that grief makes monsters of us, all but as long as you find one pure reason to keep breathing like his son, you can find your way back. You and I know the lesson here. We cannot judge the dark paths people walk in their pain, as long as they eventually choose to survive. Nick lowers his gaze, admitting the agonizing truth that grief made him a hollow shadow of a father for 2 years. Savannah softly reminds him that he knows how to be a dad now. The kitchen falls completely silent. The space between them shrinks. Charged with a magnetic heat, he looks at her with an intensity that crosses every line, asking her to drop the formalities and use his first name. Savannah feels the fire, immediately steps back and shuts it down before walking away. The lesson is vital. Never blur boundaries, no matter how intoxicating the danger feels, but secrets never stay buried in the dark. 2 floors down, his girlfriend Camila sits watching this electric moment unfold through a hidden camera, an unhinged jealousy slowly poisoning her mind. About the sheer sickness of it. Paid a nameless contractor to rig the entire penthouse with hidden lenses, feeding her own paranoia. Sitting alone, she replays the footage of Savannah pulling away. She rewinds the exact second Dominic asks Savannah to use his real name. 3 times she watches it. Her chest tightens because she recognizes that raw, vulnerable devotion in his eyes. It is the exact same way he used to look at the wife he buried. Sitting in the pitch black, Camila refuses to let a single tear fall. The life lesson is a bitter pill. The moment you have to spy on your partner to feel safe, the love is already a ghost. Paranoia does not protect you, it only rots you from the inside out. Her heart turns to stone, and a cold, calculating monster is ready to take what is hers. Camila swallows her sadness and lets vengeance take the wheel. She knows if she actually hurts Savannah, Dominic will burn the city to the ground, so she settles for psychological torture, hoping to terrify the girl enough to send her running back to Ohio. She hunts down a driver named Marlon, a desperate man drowning in debt to street sharks, and wires him $3,000. She even manipulates the hotel network, so Marlon accepts Savannah's ride request. It is a masterclass in cruelty. Here is a life lesson to remember. Toxic envy will always turn you into the monster you fear. Trying to ruin an innocent life just to soothe your own broken ego is a path that will only lead to your own absolute destruction. The trap is officially set in the dark. Savannah climbs into the back seat, unaware she is stepping into a cage. The city lights begin to fade. She checks her phone and her stomach drops. They are way off the route. She asks him to pull over, but Marlon stares dead ahead. The car turns into a pitch-black alley behind an old warehouse, and the heavy doors lock shut, but Savannah is forged from tough steel. After years of surviving the worst, she does not scream. She quietly grips her keys between her fingers. You have to remember this life lesson. Always stay sharp, and never let blinding panic steal your ability to survive. Just as the shadows close in, a mysterious black sedan violently swerves out of the darkness, aggressively blocking the alley and flooding the night with its blinding headlights. The driver can reverse, a second vehicle blocks them in. Dominic's men were tracking her the whole time. 2 enforcers step out, shattering Marlon's window into 1,000 pieces before he can blink. The back door swings open to reveal Frankie, the boss' trusted right hand. He gently drapes his coat over Savannah's trembling shoulders, promising the dawn is coming. 12 minutes later, Dominic's tires screech onto the pavement. He pulls her into his personal car. He does not ask if she is hurt, because his piercing eyes have already scanned every inch of her for injuries. The life lesson stands tall here. True protectors do not waste breath. On empty words they let their swift. Relentless actions do all the heavy lifting when it truly matters. The engine roars as they tear down the empty highway. The silence is thick until Dominic shatters it. His voice is cold steel. He demands to know if she suspects someone in his inner circle ordered the hit. Savannah hesitates, hating the thought of condemning a woman based on a feeling. But finally, she breathes Camila's name. She admits she recognized that twisted, jealous glare, like a toxic diner customer right before they break a glass. Dominic asks why she carried that secret alone. Her answer carries a profound life lesson about respect. She says she had no right to accuse his family, refusing to force him to choose between his partner and an employee. That quiet, selfless maturity is exactly why the ruthless mafia boss is falling for her. She is truly different from everyone else. Dominic aggressively throws the car into park, off the dark highway. He looks her in the eyes and drops a shattering truth. He never loved Camilla. He admits she was merely a convenient distraction for his events, having felt no real love since his wife passed. Savannah softly asks why he's a fake person near his traumatized son. Regret washes over his face. He thought the boy just needed a mother figure, but he realizes Leo needs a genuine soul. Take this simple life lesson to heart. You can never patch a deep wound by replacing true emotional connection with superficial convenience. He refuses to take her home. Instead, he locks her down in a secret Vibe hotel suite, stationing his most trusted soldier right next door. The bloody underworld war has officially begun. The contrast is staggering. While Savannah pleads for one final night in Queens to pack her humble life, Dominic steps into his pitch-black penthouse. Camila is fast asleep, oblivious to the storm. He wakes her with a voice stripped of all emotion, demanding she vanish from New York in 48 hours. No screaming matches. No dramatic accusations. He simply drops a thick stack of cash and a one-way ticket onto the mattress. He admits he lacks hard proof, but he knows exactly what kind of snake she is. Let me share a crucial life lesson with you tonight. Always trust your gut instinct. When someone's energy feels completely off, you do not need a legally binding document to prove they are toxic. Protect your peace, cut the heavy cord, and let them walk out of your life forever. Split second, the beautiful illusion shatters. Camila's innocent facade evaporates, revealing the cold venom underneath. She loses her mind, screaming that he is tossing her aside for a lowly housekeeper. In a blind rage, she hurls a glass lamp at him. It explodes into a million pieces, but Dominic does not even blink. Absolute ice in his veins, she furiously packs her designer bags and signature red heels, storming out into the night. But here is the dangerous twist. She's not heading to the airport. The moment she hits the street, she slips into a dark town car and pulls out a secret burner phone. Pay close attention to this simple life lesson. People will always reveal their true colors the exact second they stop getting their way. If you want to know who someone is, watch them handle rejection. Let us unpack this dark history together. The man on the other end of that phone is her uncle Victor Merrick, the phantom pulling every string. Born in Eastern Europe and hardened in the Bronx, Victor is the ultimate villain of this tragedy. He runs a massive underground weapons empire, speaks 5 languages, and trusts no one. Here is the devastating truth. 2 agonizing years ago, Victor was the man who paid a sniper $28,000 to eliminate Dominic on the highway. As we peel back these brutal layers, remember this simple life lesson. Your most dangerous enemies are usually the ones operating quietly in the shadows. The loudest guy in the room is never the one you need to worry about. The real threat is always the quiet observer waiting patiently in the dark. Here is where the tragedy bleeds into pure madness. That hired sniper completely missed his mark, and the bullet claimed the life of Dominic's beloved wife instead. The blinding grief turned him into a force of vengeance. In just 9 days, Dominic burned 3 of Victor's warehouses to ash, destroying $11 million in product and burying 2 enforcers, but without hard proof linking Victor to the hit. They locked into a brutal Cold War for 2 long years. Then, 8 months ago, Victor played his darkest card, sending his niece Camila to infiltrate the lonely penthouse. The ashes of this rivalry carry a very heavy life lesson. Revenge is a relentless wildfire that burns everyone it touches. Obsessing over payback will only consume your entire world, leaving you with nothing but empty hands. Welcome to the midnight hour. Tonight we start in a damp, smoke-choked basement. Camila is backed into a corner, shivering under the dead, cold stare of Uncle Victor. For 8 long months, her only job was to find out where Dominic hides his little boy. She failed completely. But cornered animals do desperate things. To save her own skin, she makes a sickening trade. She whispers a secret about Dominic's hidden vulnerability, a quiet, unassuming hotel housekeeper. It is a ruthless betrayal of someone who has no idea they are in danger. There is a hard truth you need to remember tonight. Never place your trust in a person who is willing to throw an innocent soul to the wolves. If they can sell out a complete stranger without a second thought, they will absolutely do the same to you. Camila empties every secret she has, telling Victor how Dominic looks at Savannah, the simple housekeeper. She says it is the exact same way he used to look at his late wife. You can almost hear the cold gears turning inside Victor's mind as he crafts a nightmare scenario. He will snatch the girl and the boy to bait a deadly trap, knowing Dominic will walk in unarmed just to keep them breathing. Then Victor mercilessly mocks Camila, laughing at her desperate jealousy over a maid. It is a pathetic, tragic look. This brings us to a quiet realization. You and I should both keep in mind. Jealousy does nothing but blind you to the larger board. While you are busy rotting away with envy over what someone else has, you are leaving your own life entirely exposed to complete ruin. While, back in the sprawling penthouse, the sheer gravity of betrayal is sinking into the floorboards. Frankie, Dominic's fiercely loyal right-hand man, marches in with undeniable proof. He swept the dark corners of the apartment and found 3 hidden listening devices. Worse still, he pulled the old access logs. Camila is not just a spy, she is Victor's blood relative. Dominic slams his heavy fist onto the mahogany desk, shaking the glass until it shatters. Imagine the psychological horror of realizing the monster you hunted for 2 years was sleeping in your own bed. It is a terrifying wake-up call for anyone listening tonight. Keep your inner circle incredibly tight. And always verify the souls you welcome into your sanctuary. The deadliest blades usually strike from the inside. Realization is tearing Dominic apart from the inside out. The thought that he let a cartel spy breathe the same air as his fragile son for 8 months makes his blood run cold. He kicks his chair back, so hard it fractures the drywall, barking orders at Frankie to triple the security detail on Savannah immediately. He demands she be locked away in the safe house tonight, ignoring Frankie's warning that she will fight him on it. This is no longer a polite request, and down below, 38 floors beneath this brewing war, Savannah is just folding a tiny paper pigeon, completely unaware of the shadow falling over her. It is a haunting image that leaves us with a heavy lesson. Ignorance might feel peaceful for a moment, but staying blind to your surroundings can be fatal. Look closely at the tragic contrast of this moment. Savannah sits in the quiet warmth of her room, pouring her gentle soul into a folded paper pigeon, praying it will help little Leo find his voice again. She rests the tiny bird on her nightstand. Entirely blind to the hurricane forming just out of view, she cannot see the ruthless hit squad moving through the city, or the black sedan idling by the staff exit, waiting to drag her into the dark. She is just a good, decent woman caught in the crosshairs of a generational war. Let this settle deep in your mind tonight. No matter how pure your heart is, you can still find yourself swept up in the destructive wake of others. You must always stay alert and fiercely protect your own peace, because the storm does not care if you are innocent. Dominic does not hesitate for a single heartbeat. At 7 in the morning, he forces the door open, skipping the gentle romance entirely. He drops a heavy classified file right into her lap and shatters her reality. He tells her the brutal truth: Camila belongs to the very cartel that murdered his wife. And now Savannah is marked because she dared to care for him and his son. He pulls rank, commanding her to move to the underground safe house without a single argument. When she stammers about losing her job, he silences it with forced, fully paid leave. It is heavy-handed, but it carries a truth we all face eventually. Sometimes the universe brutally rips you from your comfortable routines to shield you from dangers you cannot see. Learn to embrace the sudden, uncomfortable shifts. Savannah absorbs this earth-shattering blow with incredible grace. She just asks for one simple, heartbreaking favor. She must visit her old apartment to save a tin box holding the final memories of her late brother. Frankie offers to drive her, but Dominic is consumed by protective terror and refuses to let her out of his sight. By 5 in the evening, their armored car idles on a forgotten street corner. She runs inside and returns clutching a worn canvas bag, holding only a frayed notebook and a simple cloth rabbit. Listen to me on this one. Never lose sight of your roots. Even when the world spins entirely out of control, the humble, quiet things that anchor your soul will always matter so much more than whatever sits in your bank account. And this is where the fragile peace shatters. Savannah steps onto the cracked pavement just as Dominic opens the heavy metal door. Suddenly, the quiet street explodes into absolute chaos. Two dark sedans violently screech around the corner, barricading them in. 4 masked men pour out, guns raised before the tires even stop smoking. Frankie screams a warning over the deafening crack of gunfire, shattering the glass around them. Innocent people are diving into the dirt, crying out in sheer terror. Without a second thought, Dominic grabs Savannah and violently pulls her down behind the massive steel frame of the engine block. It is a terrifying scene that proves a vital point. True leaders do not freeze when the fire starts. They step directly into the line of danger to shield the vulnerable. Real danger is completely invisible from the ground. 4 stories above the panic, a hidden sniper is tracking their movements from a roof. Dominic catches a tiny, lethal flash of light. His instincts take over entirely. He throws his shoulders directly into the path of the bullet, taking the devastating impact meant for Savannah. The heavy round tears through his flesh, dropping him instantly to the cold pavement. Savannah does not even understand what has happened until the crushing weight of this unstoppable man falls onto her trembling hands. Here is a profound truth that cuts straight to the bone. Real love is never found in grand gestures or empty words. It is measured entirely by what you are willing to sacrifice when everything around you is falling apart. The panic inside the escaping vehicle is suffocating. Savannah lets out an agonizing scream as Frankie guns down the last attacker, forcing the remaining cowards to flee. They haul Dominic into the back seat, tearing through the city at 80 miles an hour toward a hidden clinic. Savannah presses her shaking hands against his torn chest, her clothes painted a tragic red. Through choked sobs, she begs him to tell her why he would trade his empire for a nobody. Dominic forces his eyes open, fading fast, and whispers his truth. He tells her she is not just a housekeeper anymore. It is a moment that redefines everything. Remember this lesson as you walk your own path. Your job title will never define your worth. The way you touch the hearts of others is what truly makes you irreplaceable. With me here, because the emotional weight of this moment is unbearable. Savannah is weeping softly, pleading with Dominic to keep breathing. He manages a weak smile, and confesses his late wife said those exact same words before she passed. But Savannah refuses to let him fade. She demands he survive for his little boy, and then her voice breaking, she finally admits she needs him too. Dominic slips into unconsciousness right there in her arms. What follows are 3 hours of agonizing surgery, where a single millimeter separates life and death. He survives, but Savannah is left entirely hollow. She sits in the sterile hallway, her ruined clothes stiff with dried blood, staring at the floor in silent shock. It is a grim reminder that survival itself often leaves the deepest scars. The heavy silence breaks when Frankie steps into the grim hospital corridor. He drapes his coat over Savannah's shoulders and shares a secret that changes everything. 2 weeks ago, for the first time in years, the boss finally wanted to build a future instead of chasing ghosts. The reason for his sudden hope was entirely her. Hearing this shatters the final wall around Savannah's heart, and the tears fall. 18 agonizing hours later, Dominic opens his eyes in the dim recovery room. He turns his head, and there she is. Savannah is asleep in a stiff plastic chair, still in her blood-stained clothes, refusing to abandon him. Here is a truth we all need to hear. The people who refuse to leave your side during your darkest hour are the only ones who truly deserve to stand with you in the light. After this, the room is quiet, save for the steady hum of machines. Savannah sat through 3 whole shifts of nurses, ignoring her own hunger to keep watch. Dominic sees her exhaustion and stays perfectly silent, giving her a rare moment of peace. You and I know that sometimes the deepest care is found in simply asking for nothing. By morning, they move him to a room bathed in sunlight. Just past noon, Frankie walks in with little Leo. Savannah is at the sink, obsessively scrubbing dried blood from her nails. She hears those tiny footsteps and turns. But Leo walks right past her. He climbs onto the uninjured side of the bed and places his small hand gently over his father's. It is a profoundly heavy, silent moment that completely anchors this fractured family. Leo does not utter a word, but his dark eyes brim with tears. For the first time in 2 agonizing years, this traumatized boy finally lets himself weep. Dominic wraps his good arm around his son, letting him pour out all that buried pain. It reminds us that healing often begins the exact moment we stop trying to be brave. Savannah hovers by the door, feeling like she is trespassing on sacred ground. But Dominic catches her eye and calls her forward. He is done letting her hide in the margins. Then, something beautiful happens. The boy turns his head, locks eyes with Savannah, and gently pushes against his father's chest. He is silently telling the terrifying mob boss to make room. Dominic slides over, and Savannah takes her place right there on the edge of the bed. Watch what the boy does next. Little Leo grabs Savannah's hand, takes Head's father's with the other, and pulls them firmly together. An hour later, he is fast asleep right between them. When Savannah tries to slip away, Dominic stops her with a voice that is rough and desperate. He asks her to stay. It shows that the greatest life lesson we can learn is that true courage is not about fighting the world alone. It is knowing exactly when to drop your walls. The untouchable Don completely lowers his armor here. He confesses his feelings for her, but honestly admits his life is a waking death trap. After that brutal shootout, he offers her a clean break. If she needs to walk out that door and disappear forever to stay safe, he promises he will completely understand and let her go. He offers to fund a new life for her, anywhere on the globe. Savannah grows quiet before revealing a heavy piece of her broken past. She lost her brother because she looked away for 4 minutes, swearing never to abandon someone she cares about again. Yet she is terrified she is too soft for this ruthless mafia reality. Dominic stares at her and says they will simply change the world instead. Once his rival Merrick is wiped out, he plans to hand the crime family over to Frankie. He just wants peace for his son and for her. Savannah warns him that men like him never get to retire smoothly. But nothing worth having comes without a steep price, a hard truth we must all learn to accept. Dominic looks her dead in the eyes and shuts her doubts down. He never said it would be easy, only that he will make it happen. Savannah looks down, and for the very first time she takes the lead. She flips her palm and presses it firmly against his. She needs time to process this chaos, but she refuses to run away while Merrick is still hunting them. She is staying for little Leo. And for herself, it teaches us a vital lesson. Sometimes you must finally choose your own happiness to truly support the people you love. Dominic closes his eyes, a wave of pure relief washing over his hardened features. Out in the dim hallway, Frankie watches this battered mob boss, the quiet kid, and the fierce woman holding them together. Frankie has served 3 different crime lords, but he realizes right then that the Don has finally found a real family. God help anyone stupid enough to try and take them away from him. Let's step into the shadows and look at the enemy camp together. Across town in a damp basement, rival boss Victor Merrick is unrolling a massive blueprint. His top assassin, Camila, stands nearby, downing vodka with eyes as cold as ice. Merrick drops the bitter news that Dominic survived the hit. But does he back off? Not a chance. Cruelty often targets the innocent, a dark and tragic reality of human nature. Merrick points at a tiny square on the map, declaring that if they cannot kill the Don, they will take his little boy. 5 tense days pass. Dominic is trapped in a medical sling. His movements heavy and stiff. He cannot drive a car or lift his injured arm, but his right hand is perfectly fine. He can still smoothly pull a trigger, and for a father out for blood, that is all the power he will ever need. Meanwhile, Savannah and Leo are locked away in an extreme Brooklyn safe house. This is a heavy-duty fortress disguised as a fancy brownstone, complete with a fake doorman and solid steel basement doors. Frankie is not taking any chances. He puts 8 heavy-hitting enforcers on a tight rotation. He has men in the lobby, lookouts on the roof, a crew outside, and 2 guards right inside the living room. On paper, it is an impenetrable fortress, but danger often strikes from within, reminding us that blind trust is our greatest vulnerability. Merrick has been playing a quiet game. Months ago, he secretly bought off one of Frankie's own men, enter Tony Russo, a low-level guard, drowning in a crushing $10,000 gambling debt. He is completely desperate, and now the rival boss completely owns him. Because of all the recent chaos, Tony managed to slip into the rotation without a proper background check. It proves that when we rush in a panic, we often miss the vital details that protect us. It is the middle of the night, and Tony is on kitchen duty. Around 1 a.m, he pours coffee for the 2 inside guards and stirs in a tasteless knockout powder. An hour later, both elite enforcers are passed out at the table. Tony just sits in the pitch black, listening to the soft breathing of little Leo, sleeping down the hall. He is sweating bullets, consumed by fear as he waits. At exactly 3 a.m, his phone finally glows in the dark. The hit is on. Camila and 4 heavily armed shooters slip through the basement, using a copied key, creeping across the cold floorboards like silent ghosts. Guards down in the lobby are neutralized with chemical rags, before they even know what hit them. Up in the bedroom, Savannah suddenly hears something. Not a footstep, just a single heavy breath in the hallway. Spending 11 years protecting her little brother gave her superhuman instincts. Hardship is a brutal teacher, but it prepares us for the moments that matter most. She bolts out of bed, flies across the hall, and bursts into Leo's room. The poor kid is already sitting up, his eyes wide with pure terror, as he clutches his stuffed rabbit. She scoops him up, pressing his face to her shoulder, and whispering for him to stay totally silent. But just as she reaches the door, the hallway lights violently snap on. Camilla is standing right there, flanked by 4 heavily armed shooters. Camilla flashes an evil smirk, casually calling Savannah a mere housekeeper, but Savannah does not flinch. She pushes Leo behind her back, shielding his small body, and demands the assassin take her instead. True courage shines brightest in the dark, when we put another soul before our own safety. Camilla just lets out a twisted laugh, calling her a worthless pawn, and forces them both down the stairs with dark hoods shoved over their heads. You and I need to unpack this next part together. 23 minutes later, the traitor Tony is sitting on the floor, paralyzed by crushing guilt. He heard little Leo crying in the back of that getaway van. It was a heartbreaking, terrified sob that sounded exactly like his own little nephew, and the sound completely shatters his corrupted spirit. Tony might be a coward who sold out his crew, but even he draws the line at hurting innocent children. It shows us that even in the most broken souls, a flicker of humanity can still survive. He snaps out of his panic, violently shakes the guards awake, and confesses everything, handing over the enemy's exact address. Frankie gets the intel and calls Dominic at 5:18 in the morning, dropping the bomb that Merrick took his family. Before the call ends, Dominic is out of bed. The injured mob boss is using his teeth and his one good hand to strap a weapon to his belt. Frankie begs to go instead, warning that his wounds are fresh, but Dominic goes into absolute beast mode. He roars that they are his blood, and he is leading the charge. Meanwhile, Savannah is trapped on a freezing warehouse floor. Savannah hugs Leo tight against the concrete, humming a soft melody, but the boy is shaking like a leaf. He opens his mouth trying so hard to speak. She whispers that she is never leaving his side, and then he finally forces out his second word ever. He just whispers, salve he is calling out to her. It proves that the family we earn is often stronger than the blood we inherit. She buries her face in his dark hair. Suddenly, the metal door screeches open. Camilla swaggers in, waving a loaded pistol and mocking their tender moment, promising to end them before sunrise. But Savannah goes full mama bear. She shoves Leo behind her, stands up tall, and looks the elite assassin dead in the eye. She tells her she is not a heartless monster like Merrick, and she will not shoot an innocent child. And shockingly, the cold assassin actually hesitates. Welcome back, night owls. The silence of the city shares with a single rife crack. The raid begins. Dominic Vasari, driven by a father's desperate madness, brings just 12 men to a guaranteed war zone. 3 unmarked sedans and a rusted van creep toward a fortress on Duramus Avenue, hiding in the shadow of a dead refinery. Up front, Tony Russo grips the wheel, sweating cold, praying to do one right thing before his clock runs out. They kill the headlights outside the 3 heavy rings of security. And here is a truth you should hold on to. Never ever underestimate a man who has already lost his entire world. With brutal precision, Vasari's crew ghosts the entire outer perimeter in 11 desperate seconds. He and his heavy crew breach the loading bay doors, moving like shadows before the guards even draw breath. But there is no such thing as a clean war. 2 of Dominic's men hit the concrete, never getting back up. One leaves behind a weeping wife. The other, a little girl who just started kindergarten. Frankie steps over their bodies, whispering their names into the gunpowder smoke. It is a harsh reality to swallow loyalty, demands blood. And the streets will never weep for the families, left waiting by the door. The second wave fights back hard, but Dominic walks straight through the crossfire. Left arm bound in a sling, he does not run. He just raises his weapon and drops a trained military guard with 3 flawless shots. Chair a little closer, because you and I need to look at what happens next. The third ring is a suffocating narrow hall. At the end stands Merrick, weapon drawn, wearing the coldest smile a man can wear. He tells Dominic he waited 2 long years for this exact night, ever since Vasari took his wife. Dominic does not even blink. He just stares through the dark and says Merrick took his son, and the debt ends tonight. Let that sit with you for a second. Vengeance is just a bitter poison that burns both houses to ash. Merrick snaps, his first shot grazes Dominic's ear. Dominic answers instantly, putting a round through Merrick's thigh. But Merrick fires one last time, catching Dominic just under the armor. Dominic crashes against the wall, his life spilling onto the floor. Dominic can barely feel his legs sliding down the brick wall. but he keeps his eyes open just long enough to see Frankie slip out of the shadows behind Merrick. No grand speeches, no final words. Frankie just raises his steel and ends the man who ruined so many lives. 3 doors down that dark corridor, the deafening gunfire echoes. Camilla hears it coming and starts to unravel, her trembling hands white-knuckling a heavy pistol. Savannah sees the panic in the girl's eyes. Without thinking, she steps right into the line of fire, shielding little Leo with her own body. That is the thing about real courage. It is not about being fearless. It is about standing in front of the innocent when your knees are shaking. She tells Camilla to walk away, but the girl's grip only tightens. The cold metal barrel in Camilla's hands shakes violently. Savannah takes one slow, deliberate step forward, her voice remarkably calm, asking her to just let the weapon go. Camilla shatters in that moment, her voice cracking as she sobs that she gave her entire soul to this dark life and has nothing left to show for it. Savannah looks her dead in the eye and tells her that she still has her own heart, and that is enough. We all need to hear that sometimes, no matter how deep of a grave you think you have dug, your life still holds immense worth if you just drop the shovel. All the anger drains out of Camilla. She collapses onto the hard concrete, weeping bitterly, and lets the gun clatter away. Savannah kicks it aside, scoops little Leo up tight against her chest, and runs. The heavy steel door kicks open with a deafening crash. Frankie storms the room, finger on the trigger, but Savannah screams out that it is over, begging him to spare the broken girl on the floor. Frankie studies the room for 1/10 second, then coldly puts his weapon away and locks Camilla in cuffs. Savannah does not wait. She carries Leo down those rusted stairs into a loading bay thick with the smell of sulfur. Then she sees Dominic. He is fading fast against the cold brick. Looking more ghost than man, Savannah drops to her knees, screaming his name into the night air. His heavy eyelids flutter, begging to see his boy. She places Leo against his good shoulder. The boy buries his face in his father's coat and whispers one word, "Dad." Love truly is the only anchor we have when drifting into the dark. The single word was only the 3rd time the little boy had ever spoken in his entire life. Dominic completely shatters, burying his face in his son's hair, letting the tears mix with the blood on his jacket. Savannah is sobbing uncontrollably beside them, and even a cold killer like Frankie has to turn away to wipe his eyes. Sirens finally wail in the distance, intentionally late. Frankie's crew has already vanished with the bodies, leaving Merrick's dark empire to crumble to dust by morning. As for Camilla, Frankie made a quiet call to the feds hours before the raid. He traded the bullet for a federal kidnapping charge. It is a quiet truth to remember: the smartest minds do not need to shed blood to win their wars. They just rewrite the rules of the game. She lives, but she will be locked in a cage for decades. While Camilla trades her freedom for a cold concrete cell, Dominic is fighting a much darker battle. 2 brutal surgeries over 14 agonizing days, one stretching into a 5-hour nightmare. The steel had torn through his side, leaving ruin behind. An underground doctor, washing blood off her hands in a rusted sink, looks Frankie in the eye and admits she thought the boss was already a ghost, but some men refuse to fade. For 3 weeks in a quiet Forest Hills clinic, Dominic fights through the absolute agony. He barely sleeps, his body a wreck. Yet every morning at 7, Savannah is there, a warm cup of coffee in her hands. Every afternoon, his boy leaves a folded paper bird by the bed. It is beautiful. Really true love from the people who hold your heart gives you the sheer strength to stare down death and win. With me here, because this is where everything shifts. It is the 4th morning when Savannah finally calls him by his real name in front of the crew, gently telling him to rest his arm. Frankie just sits by the window, pretending to read the paper, but hiding a tiny knowing smile. 10 days later, the real test begins in the dim back room of a Mulberry Street restaurant. 11 hardened men sit around a table, smelling of cheap garlic and bleach, loaded weapons resting quietly beneath linen napkins. The air is thick enough to choke on. Dominic walks into the room, arms strapped tight to his chest, and changes the world. He looks them dead in the eye and says he is stepping down. Never forget this lesson: knowing exactly when to lay your crown down is the most powerful thing a king can ever do. Dominic's voice is steady as he passes the heavy crown to Frankie. Effective midnight, the cramped room goes dead cold. One massive man down the table slams his fist, growling that blood is the only way out of their world. Dominic calmly replies that he will still offer his mind, but his hands are done. He chooses to be a father now. Then, some bitter soldier across the room mutters a slur into his glass, calling Savannah a mere maid, a massive mistake. Shaking with pain from the wound still fresh in his side, Dominic slowly rises to his feet. His sheer presence suffocates the room. He warns them all that they will speak her true name, or they will swallow their teeth. The silence that follows is absolute. Keep this close to your chest, a real man will burn the world down to demand respect for the woman who saved his soul. Frankie rises slowly beside his mentor, lifting a glass of dark liquor. He speaks like a soldier taking a sacred vow. He has carried for 15 long years. He swears to honor the clean boundaries. Dominic bled for no poison in the streets, just quiet business. And above all else, he vows to guard the Vasari family with his own heartbeat. 11 heavy glasses rise into the smoky air. The rain is over. Hours later, sitting by his clinic bed in the quiet dark, Savannah nervously asks if he is sure. Since this violent life was all he ever knew, Dominic reaches out. Taking her hand, he tells her it was his father's nightmare, not his, and tonight he chooses peace. We all need to remember this truth before we go to sleep. You do not have to carry the poison your family handed you. You hold the pen to your own ending. The dust was finally settling. With Merrick gone, Dominic knew Frankie could handle the brutal mob fallout. After 9 grueling years of building an untouchable reputation, nobody would dare move against a Vasari who just wanted peace. Savannah sat by his bed, handing him a spoon. Her voice was a soft whisper when she asked what he truly wanted after all this madness. Dominic drew in a shaky breath. He laid out a dream that broke her heart with its simplicity. He just wanted to walk his boy to school, drink coffee with the woman he loved, and sleep without checking for a loaded gun under his pillow. True wealth is never about power, it is simply feeling safe in your own home. Hearing this, Savannah let out a genuine laugh, finally free from her long, heavy nightmare. You and I have seen the darkest corners, but stick with me, because this is where the real healing begins. Dominic reached out his heavy right hand and covered hers. He did not pull or force the moment, he just desperately needed a human anchor. She did not pull away. They sat in absolute silence for 20 straight minutes. Across the room, little Leo was fast asleep, his tiny fingers tightly clutching the first paper rabbit Savannah had made for him. Suddenly, a gentle nurse named Maggie stepped in with a warm, foil-wrapped bundle of homemade banana bread, baked fresh at dawn. A beautiful lesson sits right here. The smallest, unexpected acts of pure kindness are exactly what it takes to rebuild a profoundly broken soul. He stood quietly by the door, studying the bruised man, the exhausted woman, and the little boy dreaming in the corner. After 35 years in that hospital, she had seen thousands of families. She gave a firm, knowing nod and declared they were a real family, and it was time they lived like one. 6 weeks later, Dominic finally walked out, but they did not return to a cold, flashy penthouse. Instead, they pulled up to a cozy 3-story brownstone in Park Slope, complete with a bright red door and a golden maple tree. Dominic used completely clean paperwork so no journalist could trace him back to the Mafia. The ultimate lesson here: you can absolutely rewrite your destiny, but only if you are willing to trade fake power for real, lasting peace. You would expect a heavy hitter like Dominic to hide out in a towering Manhattan penthouse with marble floors. But here is where the story flips. The former boss chose a normal home with a crooked kitchen tile and a faded wooden porch. But Savannah made the ultimate move. She flat out refused to move in with him. Instead, she rented a tiny apartment right above a Brooklyn flower shop. She paid her own rent with hard-earned cash and put her own name on the doorbell. She looked the Don right in the eyes and told him she was walking on her own 2 feet, not just stepping through doors he opened for her. Dominic just nodded, his chest aching with profound respect. The takeaway is crucial for all of us. Never let someone else hold the keys to your personal independence. No better than to push a woman rebuilding her soul. Savannah kept her fierce hustle, scrubbing hotel floors twice a week for her independence. But for the 3 days she watched little Leo, Dominic laid out a completely legitimate contract, complete with proper taxes and full health benefits, and little Leo was finally blooming. He was dropping clear sentences, asking for pasta, and telling Savannah that he loved her. Every morning, he sat folding paper rabbits like a quiet little survivor. But old habits die hard. Dominic tried a classic mob flex, bringing out glossy brochures for elite private schools with heavy stone gates and massive tuition fees. It is a harsh reminder that throwing endless money at a family can never buy real, meaningful progress. Let's unpack this moment together. Savannah barely glanced at those glossy brochures before sliding them away. She slapped down found a form for a normal public school, wanting Leo to mix with everyday kids. Dominic bristled, boasting he could drop heavy cash for any elite academy. But Savannah delivered a devastating reality check. His son needed to learn survival in the real world, not hide in a fragile bubble of wealth. The former boss just stared at her, deeply humbled, and silently signed the paper. Soon after, Savannah enrolled in night school, paying her own way with loans and hard-earned tips. Genuine power is staying firmly grounded when everyone else is desperately trying to fly too close to the sun. Dominic accidentally found her night school tuition bill, and the man was instantly triggered. He was a former boss, who never heard the word no, demanding to pay the balance. But Savannah stood her ground. She had to own this degree herself, telling him he could never understand, because he had never struggled for an honest thing in his life. Dominic was completely silenced, the heavy truth sinking in. Fast forward to a peaceful Sunday evening. Savannah was cooking her grandmother's lasagna, intentionally burning the edges because that meant the kitchen was full of warm love. Little Leo took a massive bite, his eyes lighting up as he shouted how yummy it was. It beautifully proves that the absolute best things in life are the ones you slowly build with your own two hands. Dominic popped open a bottle of red wine, stared at it like an old enemy, and poured himself a glass of pomegranate juice instead. 7 full weeks completely sober. That quiet discipline changes a man. Later on the back porch, little Leo was passed out in Savannah's lap, clutching a paper rabbit. Dominic finally got real. He confessed in a ragged voice that he had not proposed because he was terrified she would only say yes, out of sheer obligation. He assumed she felt she owed him a debt. Savannah looked up, her eyes soft in the dark. She told him she did not owe him a single thing, she just felt genuinely, deeply loved. True loyalty is never about keeping a tally or settling old debts. It is simply about showing up for someone when they desperately need you the most. Leaned in for their first real kiss. It was quiet and incredibly careful, the kind of kiss you only get when two bruised souls truly choose each other against all odds. But you and I cannot forget the villain lingering in the shadows. Cut to a cold concrete cell in upstate New York. Camila sat shivering behind iron bars, completely stripped of her high society glamour. She was hunched over, writing a desperate letter to her mother for the 3rd time. She finally broke down and admitted she was dead wrong. She confessed that chasing that toxic, flashy lifestyle was never worth betraying her own flesh and blood. Actions always carry brutal consequences. Sometimes a person has to lose absolutely everything to finally realize what actually mattered in the first place. Camila sat on that letter for 6 straight months before finding the guts to mail it. But facing your own demons is the first step. You and I have watched this agonizing saga unfold, and the biggest twist is not some chaotic mafia shootout. It is the undeniable fact that you cannot buy genuine kindness. A folded paper rabbit and a patient heart can heal trauma that $1 million in cash could never touch. Finding someone who refuses to walk away when things get gritty is the rarest gift in the world. The true heavy hitters do not wear tailored designer suits or run criminal empires. They wear faded name tags and hustle out there for $14 an hour. Always remember to value the quiet, everyday grinders, because they are the ones truly holding this broken world together. Everyday heroes sit on cold hospital floors, folding paper toys for kids who forgot how to smile. Look around your own circle today. Who holds it down for you in the dark without ever asking for a payout? Go tell them you see their quiet hustle. If this emotional ride hit you right in the chest, hit that like button, share this with your crew, and subscribe so we can bring you more heavy storylines every single day. Jump into the comments and tell us who your personal hero is. We read every single one, and your real-life stories might just inspire our next upload. Wherever you are tuning in from tonight, stay safe, guard your peace fiercely, and never stop dropping a little bit of unexpected kindness into the world. You never know whose entire life you might be saving.
Leo's silence is one of the emotional centers of the story. After watching his mother die, he stopped speaking for 2 years. Many adults around him try to help, but most of them approach him with pressure, expectations, or fear. They want results. They want progress. They want him to return to normal. But trauma does not obey adult timelines. Savannah understands something others miss. Leo's silence is not stubbornness. It is protection. In his mind, words may be connected to loss, danger, and grief. If the last time he spoke was near the moment his mother died, then silence becomes his way of keeping the world from breaking again. This is an important educational lesson for parents, teachers, and caregivers. Children do not always express pain directly. Some's children cry. Some become angry. Some withdraw. Some stop speaking. Their behavior is often a message, not a problem to punish. Savannah does not demand that Leo look at her. She does not ask him to perform. She does not overwhelm him with bright toys, loud voices, or forced affection. Instead, she creates a safe rhythm, folding paper, humming softly, sitting nearby, letting him choose when to approach. Through safety, Leo slowly begins to trust again. His progress comes in tiny steps, touching her hand, sitting beside her, humming back, shaping silent words, and eventually speaking. These moments may look small to outsiders, but for a traumatized child, they are enormous victories. The lesson is clear. Healing requires patience. A child who has been hurt needs consistency more than pressure. They need adults who can stay calm, respect boundaries, and celebrate small signs of trust. Leo's recovery teaches us that children do not heal because we force them to speak. They heal when they finally feel safe enough to use their voice again.